So that makes sense. Let's do it.
Look, Bill, what you're saying, you're listening to the American people. Right now, Harry Reid and the Senate Democrats are not.
All right.
And millions of Americans are hurting under Obama.
But you guys should hold a press conference, you, Boehner, and get 4 or 5 other Republicans, and just say what I said. You got to break it down and make it easier so that the press, and we just played the clip, can interpret your position. You see, that's what's happening.
But look, the press is always going to repeat the White House's talking points. That's what the mainstream media does. Look, the last thing the House passed was virtually identical to what you just said, and all 54 Democrats said, no, we're not going to treat hardworking Americans the same as big business and members of Congress.
But you got to sell it, Senator. You got to sell it to the folks who are watching football, dancing, singing, juggling, texting a little. You got to sell it, or the polls will go against you. And that's the reality of the country in which we live.
Yeah. Bill, let me point out something that in the interim, while this plays out, that we can and should be doing in terms of bipartisan cooperation. Yesterday, the Senate unanimously approved a bill the House had passed to say we should pay our military regardless of what happens in a shutdown. That was the right thing to do. I praised Harry Reid on the Senate floor for not objecting, for allowing that to happen. Now, yesterday, President Obama gave a long speech where he talked about all the things that were going to lose funding during a shutdown. Border Patrol agents not being paid, the VA, shutting down national parks and the Smithsonian. I think we ought to pass continuing resolutions to fund every single item, every single priority President Obama laid out. We should respond to his priorities. I agree with them. And we should go forward and fund the Border Patrol, fund the national parks.
That's a clever way, and you know you're on a factor tonight. That's a clever way of saying we'll fund everything but Obamacare, because that's what you wanted to do in the first place. So we'll fund all of these things that you want, Mr. President, but no Obamacare. So it's kind of a backdoor deal, Senator. I mean, I admire the strategy, but I know what you're doing.
But listen, it's not quite. What I'm saying is we should focus on areas of bipartisan agreement. So, for example, a continuing resolution that simply continues the funding for VA, doesn't mention
all
Obamacare,
of that is good, but I want to get the whole thing done. Now, listen.
Look, I do too, but I think we should focus where we have agreement.
You know why you're not going to get President Obama to give much? And this would have to come from the Senate. It's not going to come from the president, but he could be persuaded if Harry Reid and those people would say, hey, you got to do this. It's Syria. See, he backed off on Syria and he looked weak. If he backs down from Ted Cruz, you know what's going to happen. He's not going to back down. It's you and him. Mano a mano. This is a macho thing. You know what this is.
Well, and look, right now, Harry Reid wants a shutdown. The reason we have a shutdown is because Harry Reid wants a shutdown.
Because he thinks he's going to win, and the Democratic Party is going to do better next year. He thinks he's going to beat you.
But you know what? Millions of Americans right now are hurting with Obamacare. They're losing their jobs. They're being pushed into part-time work. You know, I agree with James Hoffa, the president of the Teamsters, who said Obamacare is destroying the health care, and he used the word destroying, of millions of hardworking Americans.
But the polls haven't caught up to you yet. The polls still say most of the folks are blaming Republicans. So I think you guys should do some PR here and find, as you said, find a way to get Reid to come on over, because they don't lose anything by giving the folks a waiver for a year. They don't. You still got your law. We'll see how it shakes out. It's best for the folks. Last word, Senator.
But he's refused to grant a waiver to people. I think we ought to, at a minimum, today, fund the VA, fund the national parks, fund NASA, fund the Border Patrol. And if Harry Reid wants to stand up and object, say he wants to shut down the VA, then let him defend it. I think that's wrong. We need to listen to the American people, and we need to fix this train wreck that is Obamacare.
All right. Senator